So we are back for chapter 3 with our local OCD expert, April Vass of OCD Wellness. Today, we're going to continue the conversation about what OCD is, how we treat it, what that process looks like with April. So for chapter 3, we're going to be talking about what OCD treatment actually looks like and why it works. So let's start from the top, April. You open the section by saying healing is possible. Like, why is that message so important for people with OCD to hear?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest reason is because OCD is so defeating. It can take over your life in so many ways to the point where you almost feel like you're losing everything, whether that's relationships or careers, just your ability to function in everyday life. So I think with this, like just the exhaustingness of OCD and its nature to take over, I think just hearing someone say like it is possible to heal, even if at a higher level of severity, you are able to conquer it. Another piece I think is that people go untreated for so long, or they are provided treatment that is incorrect, that they don't think it is possible, right? You get, say, general CBT as a treatment, and it ends up making your symptoms worse. And then you're feeling overwhelmed, like, well, I did do the therapy and I keep doing the therapy and I'm just getting worse. So there's obviously nothing out there to help me. So I think saying like healing is possible is also saying there's, gold standard treatment out there known as exposure and response prevention therapy. There's also additional like therapies coming out as well, that are talked about a bit more, that can help and make healing possible.
Yeah, so that hopelessness, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked about this in the past chapters. We saw the same thing in the addiction world. When someone loses hope, it's a slippery slope. So a really powerful message. And you just mentioned ERP, which really even, I don't want to say, yeah, I've been involved in the health industry in one way or another for many years. And that's something I'm really not familiar with. And I found fascinating from your articles. So walk us through what exposure and response prevention therapy actually is, and how does it work so effectively become the gold standard for OCD treatment?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think to just kind of start off really quickly, like when we have our assessment, like our sessions, we do an assessment to really understand what those core fears are. And then from there, understanding what the fears are and what the triggers are for you, we then create what's called a hierarchy of exposures. So we come up with all the different things that you might be avoiding, things that are triggering the OCD, and we're essentially going to have you go do them. But the biggest thing of doing them and exposing yourself to them is that we're removing the compulsions. So anything that would be you be engaging in to reduce the distress. So it's whether it's a mental or physical compulsion, we're not going to do it. We're going to let that anxiety come up and just kind of sit through it and let it come down naturally. So we have this hierarchy of exposure ideas, and we'd have you rate how scary each one would be. We want to kind of start in that middle ground so that we're not like taking out something too scary. Like, I'm not coming back. That was horrible. But we also want to make sure we are producing some anxiety so we can help walk you through those tools. So kind of understanding that base, when we look at exposure therapy, we really are like exposing you to those things that trigger you. So we're in session, we're pulling something from that hierarchy. That could be something in person. Maybe we go to a store together. Maybe we're in the office touching items, reading things, saying words that are triggering, or we're in your home and we're doing exposures in your home. This is where virtual therapy has been very helpful. And so we're doing things in your home that might be an exposure. And so whatever it is that we're doing, we're having you engage in that exposure, and you're sitting through that anxiety. I always say, like, what comes up must come down. And like, that's that important learning where you're having this increase in anxiety, and you're going to feel this like strong urge and need to engage in your compulsion. All the fire alarms are going off from OCD saying like, do something, like life or death here. And we're choosing not to do anything. And we're going to give you some tools to help you through that. I think the biggest thing to stress is the tools aren't there to reduce the anxiety. The tools are there to help you not engage with the OCD. Because if we do anything to help reduce the anxiety, you're doing that will quickly turn into a compulsion. And that's why other treatment modalities often don't work, right? Is that we're not here to get rid of it. We're here to learn to live life with it. And as you do that, things start to get easier. Like the noise quiets down. So the first time you did the exposure, the anxiety skyrocketed. If you don't do the compulsion to bring it down, you see it like it's going to take a while, but it's going to eventually come down. And you got all this really cool learning known as like habituation or inhibitory learning, where it's like the fear, you're either learning the fear didn't happen, or you're learning, I could handle it, or the fear is less likely to happen. And then the next time you do it, it's going to do the same, but it's going to go up a little less and it's going to come down a little faster. And each time we do that, you're getting this learning that's really important, so that we get you to a place where you can go through life and either it doesn't come up at all for you, or it still comes up, but you're like, yeah, whatever. You don't deserve my time. Like, I feel strong and powerful to not engage with this thought, because it's just a thought.
It's such a fascinating thing for me. I don't want to take this down a rabbit hole, but it seems like humans, by and large, a lot of us, I don't want to paint the whole world in broad strokes, but we don't like discomfort. We don't like pain. And so the pharmaceutical world, the medical world, a good portion of that is like, let's create something like a pill or a drink or something that removes that discomfort and brings you back to a state of comfort. But I think a lot of us have learned that it's just a Band-Aid, and it often can make the situation worse. It seems like the answer, at least from my experience, typically is embracing that pain in some way, sitting in it, getting to understand it, unpacking it in some way. Like it was almost scary to me when you said that. It kind of brought up some anxiety for me, because I get anxiety for sure. There's things that I fear about. And when you said it's not about like clearing that anxiety away, getting that anxiety away, it's more about understanding how to live with it. So now I have to accept that pain is just going to be a part of my existence. But the better I understand it, the more I learn to deal with it rather than react emotionally or just compulsively. It becomes a skill, just a way of dealing with it and acceptance, which for some people hearing that, I imagine it's going to have a similar response to me. It's like, I need to accept this pain in my life in some way. And by doing that, it will likely decrease the pain as I increase my level of exposure to it and increase my understanding to it. And having someone like you as a guide kind of walk me through it, rather than in my life on my own, I feel some sense of stress, and sometimes I react right away and I go off and I do that thing. And now it's set me back a little bit. To have that expert guide be like, no, we don't need to do that. Let's talk about it. And then you give these tools. It's just such an interesting fact that if we want to feel less pain in our life, we have to face that pain in some way. It seems like it's almost always the case.
Absolutely. I think too, like, we see just like anxiety, distress, like all these other emotions, even like anger and sadness is like negative, bad emotions to have. And it's to say like, these are all there for a reason. Like, human emotions are healthy and important, and we don't need to paint anxiety as this bad thing that we need to get rid of. Like, it's actually there to help us get up in the morning and do all these things. And so of course too much of it isn't great, but that's where it's like, if we can embrace it and we can face it, we hold this power over it. And I think it's kind of like that, if you ever heard that activity where it's like, I'm just going to ask you not to think about the purple elephant for like 1 minute. Just try not to think about it. It's like, all you do is think about it. So it's like, the more you try to push anxiety away, the more you're thinking about it, the more anxious you're going to make yourself. And that's the same thing for OCD. But yeah, I think it's just embracing these emotions are all human and like emotions to have. And we want to be able to have them in our life and not run from them. I think it does, like, there's that one quote I've told you about before where like, I just love it because it encompasses the fact that we have to face our fear, because until we face it, it will always hold that power. But once we stand in front of it and we face it and let it be there, it's going to wash over you. And yeah, you're kind of the one standing there left strong.
And what is the quote?
I'm going to butcher it. I think it's like, I must not fear fear is the mind killer. It's from Dune. It's like the total like obliteration. I will face my fear. I will let it pass over me. I'm butchering it. I'll have to look. I have to look it up.
At least you got
But
some points from it. I think
yeah, something along the lines of like, I will face it and let it pass through, and when it is gone, only I remain. So I think that's like that
I
powerful.
love that part.
Yeah, yeah. I'll make sure I remember that.
Yeah, I really love that part. It's such a fascinating thing. Like, man, we could talk about this one thing for so long, but I think so. Like when we hire a lot of people, right? So we hire a lot of salespeople. In the beginning of the stage in our business, we call it the phase of suck. It's extremely uncomfortable. But when you look at the person's skill set and you look at their potential, it's like, what is possible for this person is so much more than what's happening right now. They can do this. It's just picking up a phone and calling somebody, hearing no from somebody. I don't want your stuff right now. That's like, we don't need to get attached to that and take it so personally. So when we start peeling back the layers, why is this person stuck and paralyzed? It's often from some fear that they're not willing to embrace. And how many lives are stuck between their current self and their future self, which they want to be, by a wall of fear? Like, how many of us are just spending days, maybe hours, days, weeks, months, potentially years, maybe even a whole lifetime hiding behind that wall, not wanting to face that fear? And what once started as maybe a small fear has now turned into Mount Everest. We're looking at it so subjectively rather than objectively, which you just mentioned a moment ago. Emotions just are not good or bad. It's our perception of them that makes them that way. I feel pain in my leg. I get that emotion. I get the anxiety, and immediately I think it's bad because I'm uncomfortable. And for whatever reason, I believe discomfort is a negative. Whereas the gym example, constantly, it's like that discomfort equals growth in the gym. We all know that if you go there and you feel no discomfort, you probably didn't do the job. Same with stretching. If you're stretching and you're not feeling anything, any sense of discomfort, likely nothing good is happening. So that's an example where pain can be a positive. So it just tells us right in that moment that it's objective. It can be positive or negative. It just is. So I love that.
I think one thing I was just going to add to that quickly too, which might fuel into like the next direction you're going into, is also just acknowledging the unknown. Like, I think a lot of the fear, a lot of the things you just mentioned, it comes from just like this fear of not knowing what's next, right? When you're stuck in that middle ground. And that's where our imagination kicks off. Like, it tells you what could fill in, like all that, well, what if this, what if that? And that those what ifs, that imagination that's filling that unknown, is what's keeping you stuck and really bringing forward that fear. I think just in life, we have really eliminated our ability to handle the unknown. Like, I think when I was younger and the internet wasn't really a thing, you didn't have cell phones, like, so I had to sit in the unknown on like where my parents were going and when they were coming back, or my parents had to sit in the unknown of when I was coming back, when I first learned to drive. Like, no one had these contacts, and like we had to just tolerate, and our imagination wouldn't kick in because it was just like a normal thing that like, well, yeah, they'll come back when they come back. But now we have like the phones, we have constant access to information, and we just can't tolerate not knowing. And when we don't have the answer, our brain goes like wild with all the potential like reasons for it. And that's like OCD, like times 1,000, right? Like, OCD will always give you the what ifs that happen when you have OC. Fit OC's narrative. It always will fill in your imagination. It will fill in those unknowns and those what ifs with like the core fear. So that's like that difference. And we all kind of struggle with the unknown at this point, and we all have anxiety around it. But our imagination won't necessarily always pull on worst case. It won't pull on like our worst fears ever. Whereas OC is always going to fill the hole with like, what if you're going to hurt someone? Like, you can't trust yourself, right? Like, it's going to jump right to that instead of like just a general what if.
Which that I'm listening to you say this, and I said this in the last couple of chapters. It's like there's a number of things aligning with who I am, how my existence goes moment to moment. And I would say that that is one of the things that bothers me the most, is the unknown. Yeah. I need clarity. I need answers. It's like obsession. Maybe if that's the right word, maybe it isn't, I'm not sure. But it's one of the things that drives my life. It's one of the things that drives my business, just my existence, is the seeking for an accurate answer. And if you're like, listen, man, you probably won't get that answer for a year. You're just gonna have to accept it. And maybe that year turns into 2 or 3. I really can't even tell you. That's difficult for me.
Yeah.
So when I'm listening to you say this, I'm thinking a number of times throughout our conversations, like, do I have OCD? Maybe I have OCD, but maybe I do. But the what you said a moment ago is where a lot of people face what I just said, and people with OCD go to the worst case scenario. Like, what if I hurt somebody, or what if I die? Things like that is what I gathered from what you said. And thankfully I don't go to that. But yeah, I mean, what are the next 6 months going to be? Somebody starts talking about the economy. Your business is doing well. You spent so much time building it up, and it's like, really? Can the economy be the thing that hurts this, that takes this down, even though you've built a good foundation? Really desiring that control and clarity over it. That is something that gets to me. Accepting the unknown more than I thought. And the more I learn and the older I get, the more I realize how much impact it has on my decision making. It's an interesting thing. It's a very interesting thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like again, when you think about just how distressing it is for you, imagine adding in like that, like it's something that just is your worst fear that comes through, or like it doesn't, I guess even just doesn't align with your values, and how yucky and uncomfortable that would just make it even more. But yeah, absolutely. OC can go to like worst case scenario, and like those really horrible taboo type of thoughts. It also just like, it just gets to a point of being illogical. So it could be like a fear anyone else would have, but it's to the point of it's like illogical. Like there's so much imagination in it that it wouldn't make sense for this situation, because it's just been blown up so much that it's no longer holding any logic to it. So it doesn't always have to be like this grand harm type of thing. It could just be like, yeah, like, do I love my person? Do I not? But it's to the point of like, okay, we're like thinking about it and worrying about it, and there's no logical stance here. Yeah.
Well, that is helpful. Okay, let's talk quickly about what if first you talked about the assessment, you talked about the hierarchy. Can you paint a picture of what those first few experience with you? So I have OCD. I call you up. I sit down. Paint that picture for us of what it's like from the beginning. What can people expect?
Absolutely. So I know if you were to first just call us, we offer like a 15-minute consultation. So often I am the one answering the phone. You're going to get me if you call the business. But if I am like, your timing doesn't align with me, or I don't have room on my caseload, or I just think you're a better fit for one of our other clinicians, I'll connect you with them, and you'll have your 15-minute consultation with them to like meet and greet, just kind of see if you're a good fit. And then when it comes to our like first assessment, whether it's virtual or in person, kind of go over the basics, like all the boring stuff, where we'll go through the contract to make sure you don't have any questions, answer any questions you do have. I always love to go over the limits of confidentiality. I know it's in the contract, but just kind of recognizing again those more taboo thoughts, like what if I'm a danger to someone else or myself? There's a huge difference to you truly having suicidal ideation versus you having harm OCD. And we acknowledge that. And I like to share that at the beginning, because I can only imagine if you have a taboo type OCD themed subtype and you're coming in, like the amount of fear you may hold of like, oh no, what if I told this therapist that I have harm thoughts about my child or myself, like they're going to report me. And so we just like to say there's a huge difference. We know there's a difference. And so I like to just give that education at the beginning, so you feel a bit more comfortable to open up and talk about it. I imagine the brain might still be like, but I'm different. Like, what if I'm the one she doesn't trust? But I just like to share that. So all that fun stuff at the beginning. And then it's really just like connecting, developing rapport, getting to know you, and you getting to be comfortable with us. And we do have like what's called the Yale Brown Obsessive Compulsive Scale. It's our assessment tool that we use. We can't diagnose OCD, but this tool allows us to understand, like really pull at all your triggers, the avoidances. It helps us get to the core fear. So we do it with you once we're in the stage of like jumping into like the OCD stuff and the assessment. So that can take a couple sessions. It can be a bit lengthy, but it's like the core piece to us tailoring your individualized treatment. So we go through that questionnaire with you. It has almost all of the subtypes of OCD in there, and the ones that aren't, we know how to ask for those questions because we do live and breathe this all the time. But I think not only does the assessment help us, like you teach us about your OCD so we can help you. It also just like validates the person. Like if you've never accessed support before and you're hearing all these different things, you're like, oh yeah, I experienced that. Like, oh, I thought that was just a personality quirk. Oh, I didn't realize that was it. And so it just helps validate. It helps us get the whole picture. If we're feeding OC in one end and we're fighting it on another, we're not going to get anywhere. So the assessment makes sure we don't leave anything out. Like we're kind of getting the whole picture and could fully support it. I will say one other thing is like in between the assessment and us getting to know you is us just having that like a good base of what your understanding of OCD and ERP is. So we like to kind of hear what your knowledge is and then just kind of add into it. So a lot of psychoeducation just at the beginning, but also throughout the assessment. It's a great opportunity to give psychoeducation throughout as well.
Yeah. So to me, I mean, I've been in therapy many times before, but I like the way you explained the experience that I'm interpreting from your explanation there in my head is this relaxed settings, back and forth. You're not talking at me. You're trying to extract information from me about myself so you can get to know me. And then those things line up with the assessment so we can start making progress, which I like knowing what the experience is going to be like. I've been in clinical settings before in a hospital, which were not comfortable. And I've seen what people have gone through in that setting. It's not that it's bad. It's just some people have felt like this is less human than I'd like it to be rather than a nice, comfortable setting. Two people working together to increase the quality of that person's life. That seems to be more comfortable. And for most people, it seems. So I like that. That's the way you guys do it. A couple of the metaphors you used, if we could touch on it, just keeping in mind that I had very little experience with what understanding OCD was prior to having this conversation with you. And I imagine many people are feeling the same way, that they just don't know. I imagine many people are walking around with it that haven't been diagnosed. Some people think they have it, that don't have it. So our understanding of it, I think, is critical to figuring out how to move throughout life in a better way. And these metaphors you gave were, they just painted a really good picture. So you talked about OCD being like a bully and a helicopter mom. Can you paint those two pictures for us to give us a better understanding?
Yeah, so I like to give both because not everyone wants to think about their brain as a bully.
Sure.
But I find the bully analogy just really helps. Like it just helps understand like not only what OC is doing, but the approach we want to be taking with it. So it kind of really helps emphasize that ERP approach. So when we think about a bully, let's say we're in the playground playing in the sandbox and a bully comes up and starts yelling at us. If we were to engage with the bully and start saying, don't say that, that's awful, that's mean, like you're hurting my feelings. We try to argue that what it's saying isn't true. Whatever it is that we're doing, we're engaging with it, right? And the OC is essentially learning, the bully is learning that like, oh, you don't like this. And we know that a bully wants to bother you. Like that's its whole purpose, is to bug you. So we're kind of seeing, oh, if I argue back, I try to reason with, I tell it I don't like it, I tell it I want it to go away, it's going to come at me harder. And in fact, you might accidentally give it more details. You might accidentally say things in your argumenting points that then the bully's going to take and like get back at you even more. So we know that the more you engage with the bully, the more you're fueling it, the more power you're giving it. And then we look at, well, what if I just run away from the bully? I get out of my sandbox and I book it as fast as I can. Well, the bully's either going to chase you because it like loves that you're running away from it. Like it's getting more power. It's feeling stronger than you. Or it's just going to wait there until you come back again. So yeah, maybe you can run away, feel okay for a little bit, but when you come back, it's going to be there.
Yeah.
That's the same as the OC. We can't avoid it. Like the more you avoid it, the bigger it's going to get, the more things you're going to avoid. It's always going to be there waiting, or it's going to follow you anyways. So then we kind of look at, well, what do I do with this bully? we look at the fact that you're going to just stay in the playground, stay in the sandbox and just play. And the bully's going to say all these awful things. And like, you're not going to ignore it or run away or argue. Instead, you're just gonna be like, yeah, thanks for that. Oh, good point, bully. Yep. Well, you can join me while I play in my sandcastle. Like, if you want to build it with me. And it's just going to keep saying things. And you're gonna be like, oh, yeah, good one. It's going to crash your sandcastle. And you're like, oh, that's okay. Didn't like that one anyways. So like, you're going to build another one. Like, eventually, like, it might get a little bit louder at first because it's like, I don't like this. I want you to be like upset. Like, I want to get to you. So it might try to push buttons a little bit more. But then if you just keep sitting there, it's going to calm down over time. It's also kind of like a toddler, right? A toddler kicks and screams and you give into it. Well, it just learned I have to kick and scream this much to get what I want. And then if you hold out, but you push a bit more, well, now the kid's like on the ground screaming and crying and flailing. It's like, if you gave into it, the kid's going to know if I just scream and flail, you'll give me what I want. So toddler, bully, kind of similar in the sense where it's like, we don't want to give into it because it's going to learn the baseline where it's going to win. And we just want to sit through that and let it come down naturally. Eventually, if you say, yeah, I hear you, bully, and I don't care the whole time, it's going to eventually walk away and no longer bother you. Very simple way of looking at OCD, because I understand there's a whole whack of like fear and anxiety and other aspects in there, but that's kind of like how we would look at like OCD and treatment is this bully. Just a quick note of the helicopter parent. It's just essentially saying you have an overbearing parent. Like you're just living life, imagining you have this voice that's like, be careful. You can't trust yourself. What if this happens? What if that happens? Oh, that happened. You should figure out what that means because you can't ever be too safe. Like it's just constantly sending you warnings and these false alarms. And like we lose the ability to trust ourselves and we lose the ability of just like sitting and not figuring it out. So that's where we kind of want to say like, thanks, helicopter parent, but I'm going to go live my life and I'm going to risk it. I'm going to trust myself that if anything happens, I'll figure it out. Right. And you're just kind of going through life, not letting the helicopter mom stop you from living it and like induce too much fear for you.
Both simplified so much. The bully one especially though, because during meditation, if anybody is spiritual and they use meditation as a practice for focus, whatever it may be, the way it works out for me, and this was brought to my attention, is almost like two things. I have me and I have my mind, and they're not always in line. Sometimes my mind is like just racing. For example, you and I have a great relationship. We've known each other for a while. I've done hundreds of these podcasts, but for whatever reason, this morning was like, hey man, you better go study for that podcast. Are you going to do good on that podcast? Just over and over and over. And it's like, that's not me. That's my mind doing whatever it's doing because I don't know. Maybe there's a fear there that I haven't dealt with. Maybe I didn't get enough sleep, whatever it may be. Maybe it's high stress from work.
I'm a bully. That's what I'm going to bully you.
That's what it is. So it's just such an interesting thing is like when you talk about the bully, it's almost like me and OCD are two different things, and I have to train it to behave itself in some way rather than reacting the way it wants me to or ignoring it. I have to remain unfazed by it and stay within its presence, and then slowly it shrinks as it doesn't get what it wants from me, which is very similar to the mind when you're focusing on, very similar to meditation with your mind. It pulls you out of focusing on your breath or whatever you're pinpointing. And then you come back and you keep training your mind. And over time, your mind is pulling you out of that focus less and less and less and less as you train and condition it. It just makes the analogy so much more simplified that I can really understand it. I think it's super valuable stuff.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I love that you say that too, because a lot of people come into my office and they'll say like, I feel like I have two brains right now. Like I have my brain and I have the OC brain, like, because it is so different. And I think just the way you talked about it too, I love all of it because it's like really externalizing the OC. Like it's not you. And we have to see it as this other piece. And again, just the experience, most people are coming in being like, I feel like I have like these two voices, these two minds going on. So I love that you said that because I think that's a very common experience that people are voicing who are experiencing OCD.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it wasn't to attach myself to these things happening in my mind, because if I am attaching it to me as my identity, In some cases, I can think of myself as less than. I'm having these negative thoughts. Those negative thoughts are coming from me. I created them. I must be bad type of thing, rather than separating myself from my mind. Yeah, it's just such an interesting thing how much of this lines up with our regular everyday human existence. It just seems to be to the extreme. And because it's to the extreme, you're going to want to deal with it so you can increase the quality of your life. Last thing about what treatment looks like and why it works. It seems like shame, like addiction, is a major part of this process. So how do you help clients build? This is a big one for me. How do you help clients build self-compassion as a part of their recovery? I've certainly had shame before, and self-compassion. It's like it's so much easier for me to have compassion for somebody else than it is for myself. And I think a lot of humans would resonate with that. I haven't quite figured out why it's so much easier for us to be nicer to others than to ourselves. But can you unpack that a little bit? How you help clients build self-compassion around that part of their recovery, specifically the shame?
Yeah, absolutely. I think just seeking help and talking about it is a big thing. As soon as you talk about it, it takes away some of that shame automatically, especially when you talk about it to someone who understands, who's going to validate your experience and hold a non-judgmental environment. So yeah, I certainly think talking about it is like a big piece. When it also comes down to the treatment, even like I talked about, the assessment plays a whole role in even just doing that. Because I think just throughout the treatment, it is a lot about just normalizing their experience. And again, the assessment does that because you're kind of like, wow, like I'm not alone. This actually happens so much that it's on an assessment, like an assessment that's been around for years. And so I think there's some validating and normalizing in that too, which also helps indirectly address the shame that's happening. So I think all of those pieces together and that being held throughout the treatment, I think is a really big piece. And I find with OC, it's not even just normalizing the OCD experience, normalizing those big scary fears that are coming through, but there's also a human in there too, right? And as you and I are talking about, the unknown, the anxiety, like these fears, like those are normal for everybody, not just someone with OC. And then you have the upper level of the OC, those other big core fears that are coming through, but you're still human. You're still allowed to struggle with the unknown. You're still allowed to have this anxiety. Like that is going to happen. Like you're not going to rid that completely because that's a human experience. It's not all just this OC that makes you that you're not going to be able to function through life. So I think all those pieces certainly help it. And I think self-compassion absolutely is something that's hard to put into play. We try to sprinkle that in. Like we do like ERP, we also have like ACT and DBT as like just like modalities that get sprinkled in, and not in a way to feel better from the anxiety again, but just tools to help have acceptance and be able to sit with ourselves and not disconnect ourselves from like the OC and who we are, I think are all pieces, but also recognizing like I am doing the best that I can. I am going through every day, putting in this hard work. Like I didn't ask for this and I'm doing the best I can as a person. And just kind of sprinkling in just that self-love as much as we can throughout the treatment is really important. And it doesn't come it's not easy for us to do that. And I think that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother podcast to why we probably all, like majority of us, struggle with the self-love. But yeah, I think that's something we certainly do put into our treatment as we go through.
Yeah, I mean, all of those points are valid for me. One of the things that I found helpful for me and the people that I've worked with for the shame piece is the moment I find out that you've created an assessment off of my exact situation, something like that was your example. The moment I find out that huge groups of people have been through this and have recovered or learned to live. Recovered is an interesting word. So I look at it as more like learn to live a quality life with it. It's like death breathing. It's like, do you recover from a death? I don't know if that's a thing. I think you learn to live with it and still find ways to enjoy your life. The moment I find that out, that my situation is not unique, someone has faced exactly what I've faced before, and they're living a good life, and there's the example of it, immediately my hope comes up and my shame comes down.
Yeah.
And so that I found to be really powerful. for me. Great information, April.
Yeah. And that's certainly, I think, what led us to creating a clinician led peer support group, which just recently ended. But, you know, I'm so blessed to talk to all these amazing individuals every day as like my career and my job and my business. And I hear about OCD all the time, but then I have each individual who's living silently on their own, right? Like, yeah, they have me to talk to, but they don't know anyone else that's experiencing OCD. Like, it's very infrequent where you have these connections, you know, other people. So even in our peer support group, just helps with all of that, right? Like, wow, like you experience it too. Like, this isn't just me. Yeah, plays a big role.
Yep, the power of the group.